What it do, chat? Appreciate you, True Blue. Okay. We are in the mix. Producer's Corner 004, the one and only Au5. I am your host, Protohype. How's everybody doing? What's up in the chat? What's up, Balzone? What up, Squab? What up, Nuke? Thanks to the sub, True Blue. Shout out to everyone who subs tonight. Really appreciate you. We're working hard to bring you guys some dope shit with this corner. Au5 is just the best. What up, Whale? What up, Miri? What up, Uber Kid? What up, Band Reject? Shout out to everybody. What up, Limited Quality? What up, Apples? What up, 12K? Shout out everybody. Anyways, without further ado, we're gonna get to it. I'm gonna bring my man's Au5 in here. You guys ready to do this thing? Okay. Can we get a sound check? Is everything cool? The man, the myth,
Yo.
the Austin.
Hello.
He's here.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Alrighty. How's it going, man?
Volume. Good. Just doing a little mix check in here. Everything's cool. Sounding good. How are you doing?
Nice. I'm good. I'm feeling stoked as well.
Stoked. I just made some dinner.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, this is the Producer's Corner 004. Maybe the most anticipated. I don't know. Big deal. We're really excited. Just so you guys know, I'm gonna put this link in the chat. Q&A. Put your questions there. If you guys, did that work? Let's see. All of the money donated to Au5 goes to Au5. Obviously, I don't get any money. Go to the link that's in the scene and give Au5 some money because he deserves it. Simple as that. And he's doing this basically for free. I can't pay him. I don't have any money. So, anyways, just had to put all that on deal here. Let me make you a special VIP.
Yeah.
You VIP, so just in case you want to chitty chat, you're in. Okay. Well, first things for those. Let me make VIP done. Okay, we're ready. So I want to get started. So we're gonna go over a bunch of stuff. We're gonna go over all sorts of things, mostly music production things, but questions are, the table is open. Anything can be asked. Life questions, brand questions, artist questions, being a human question. We're not sure if Austin is a human or not, but that's not the point. So leave those in the Discord. We're going to get to those at the end and along the way as well if you have a question about something he's currently talking about. But if maybe you can just give me a little breakdown on yourself, background, where you're from, a little bit about your journey, where you are now, what you've been working on.
Oh, where to start? So yeah, my name's Austin. I go by Au5. I grew up in New Jersey and pretty much just lived there the majority of my life. And then moved out to Denver, where I'm living currently, about 4 years ago. It was right after I went on tour with Liquid Stranger, and we kind of toured the country for a few months, and then kind of feeling out different cities. And I was when we stopped through Denver, I was like, this is definitely my vibe, so I'm gonna stay here. But yeah, leading up to that, I mean, I've been a musician my whole life, ever since I was like, before I can remember. My parents would always have like music playing in the house, just all kinds of music, classical, jazz, rock, alternative, metal, that sort of stuff. And then, when I was 4, they enrolled me in piano lessons, and I did that. I took weekly lessons for 9 years. I don't think I skipped a week.
Damn.
And that was a huge foundation for just training my musical ear and my ability to just hear music. And to this day, I just hear music in my head, whether I like it or not. Sometimes it's like situations where I should be focusing on something else, or it's like an inappropriate time, and I'm like, why am I hearing this riff just like playing, or this this song stuck in my head? There's constantly music in my head. And so yeah, having an outlet for it is kind of, well, it kind of just led itself to there. Having an outlet was kind of a necessity, I would say, um, just because there was just too much.
Mm-hmm.
So I started dabbling with, I guess before producing, I just started dabbling with like making, just riffing and making my own, improvising on the piano, essentially. Um, and then when I was about 12 or 13, um, yeah, when I was about 12, that's when I got GarageBand, and I
Mm.
started
So
going
it
really into.
begins.
Yeah, I mean, I was dabbling with some MIDI sequencers a couple years before that, but nothing really serious. Once I got GarageBand, I was like, this is definitely the what I've been looking for,
Mm.
because audio processing as well as like MIDI sequencing. When I was 13, yeah, so after piano lessons, when I was 13 is when I decided to drop that and pick up the bass guitar. I started playing in some bands, and then that's kind of when I started learning um, just more about music production, music theory. I got really into jazz, and then I went to college for music production. It only took 1 year. Went to college for music production, and minored in uh, classical and jazz double bass performance. Um,
Where
and
at?
that is Shenandoah University in Virginia.
Okay.
And at around that time, I started. Um, a year prior to going into college, I released my first album, first self-published album,
Mm.
Minimality. That was back in 2010, and then, yeah, um, I got hit up by a small promoter in Baltimore, and he was interested in having me play some shows for him. Around that time, I, got all the socials up, SoundCloud, Facebook, um, and whatnot. And yeah, around the same time, small label hit me up from Australia, Atom Recordings, and they were interested in some of the dubsteppy stuff that I was making.
This before
And
Simplify?
um, I think it was before Simplify. Yeah, this is the very first label that I
Okay.
I released on. This was 2012. Yeah,
Mm.
January 2012 was the first official release that I ever had. And I don't know, I kind of just worked my way up, just networked my way up. I mean, my main focus was always just put out, just spend as much time making the best music that I can, and then just putting it out and seeing what happens. I'm not really a person to like reach out to people and try to. I don't really have an or I didn't really have like a set goal in mind to make it as this type of producer and to play these kind of shows and to work with these kind of people. I just kind of wanted to just do my own thing and see what the path of least resistance was,
Mm.
you know? So I was always just one to respond to people contacting me. I'm really not one to reach out. Um, I mean, the majority of my life, I would say not I'm not a very social person. I may have good social skills now, but that was that took a long time
Mm.
to acquire that. And yeah, just overall, like social, I prefer being in the studio, um, and I really like my solitude and time alone.
Mm.
I
Introvert
was about to
gang.
go on to, what'd you say?
Introvert gang for sure.
Yeah, that's my base. That's what my baseline is. I was about to go on tour earlier this year with Chime. We were
Mm.
about to do like I think we were about to play. We were going to play like 30 or so shows throughout the states before the pandemic happened, and it sucks that it happened at the perfectly wrong time, but at the same time it was also a huge weight off for me because like whenever there's a tour like me playing show or me anticipating playing shows, I get in my own head. It's a stressful thing. It's like I have to put everything aside, um, and just prepare for something that is going to be mentally and physically taxing. So
Mm.
that being postponed indefinitely was definitely like wow, it's kind of a blessing in disguise.
So it's never really been like touring and being like a big superstar DJ has never really been the driving force for you.
Yeah, that's never really been my thing. No, I've always kind of preferred being the behind the scenes in the studio, internet famous kind of guy. And there was a turning point back in 2012 where I had the opportunity to play my first out of state show. It was a small gig in South Dakota, and this will have been the first time, or this would have been the first time that I've ever, been on my own, without friends or people to like guide me, people that I trust, to like guide me through this new kind of endeavor. And it was a turning point in my life. I was like, this was something that I was very anxious about. Something that I didn't know if I actually wanted to do this. Like, do I want to be a touring musician, or do I just want to like make music behind the scenes? Like, I'm already seeing some success. I wonder how far I could push it. But I realized this was probably an opportunity that I wouldn't get. I probably wouldn't get many more of these opportunities if I didn't take this one.
Mm.
And so I did, and I'm really glad that I did. I knew that it was gonna be tough. Being on my own, trying to navigate a completely new industry that I was unfamiliar with.
Yeah.
Of just strangers. Yeah, but over the years, I kind of learned that was something that I could really find value in. I really found that I could, the 95% of the time that I'm in the studio, in solitude, I kind of need that balance of that extreme, just throw me into a completely unknown place with strangers, and force me to socialize and just be as expressive outwardly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I've been playing, aside from like the long stretch tours occasionally. On average, over the past 8 years, I've been playing about 1 or 2 shows a month. Up until the pandemic. And I think that's a really good balance. That's a good pacing for me. It's enough for me to like not feel burned out, for me to like recharge and feel re-inspired to like every time I go to a show. That's the cool thing about shows. Even if it's not necessarily music that I'm like 100% into, that the environment and the context of that music in that environment is so inspirational. I'm always, whenever I go to a venue and there's loud music playing and I just feel energy of people and whoever is performing on stage, I'm like, wow, I am just flooded with inspiration. I kind of wish I could just go back to my hotel or go back into the studio and write down all these things. It's just a totally new perspective. Mm-hmm. And being in the studio, it's like a clean room. Everything is like perfectly balanced, and I don't really get that rawness that I do at shows.
Just things being wrong and not sounding like the way that you would hear in a perfectly crafted studio environment.
And there's value to that, I think. Whenever I go to shows and hear extra loud music in a large reverberant space, it makes me kind of reprioritize what it is about music that I like. It doesn't have to be really intricate, complex things. It's more so like the grander scale, the larger scale, like how does simple concepts like call and response, arrangement, and a song doesn't have to be complicated for it to be good. True. And more often than not, it's the simpler the song is, the more it is accessible and the more it connects with people.
I always feel that, and I always say that a properly executed simple concept will always prevail over a fairly well done, extremely complex concept. Maybe that's because I have a smaller brain, but that's how I feel musically. Like, my most popular song is the dumbest idea ever, and it's the one that I probably enjoy the most.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's a small brain thing. I think it's more so like an intuitive thing. I think it's easy for like a lot of producers, especially me, to just like overthink things because we don't have the we could, but we don't really have the leisure of just like calling a crowd of like a few dozen people in your studio and be like, hey, vibe out with this to me, or sorry, vibe out with me to this that I'm making, and you know, give me your input. No, it's like we're alone in our own heads and we're listening to the same thing hundreds of times, and we're like, okay, this is either. I think it's hard to get our priorities straight when it comes to what it is that we're trying to express a lot of the time, or not necessarily express, but what we're trying to convey to people. It's like if we're trying to convey something that's like exciting or intense or energetic or serious, more often than not, it's like we're probably overthinking it. At least I am.
Yeah, I mean,
myself,
I also just
having to
think it's
unlearn.
hard. Like, it's hard to know what you want to convey in the first
Yeah.
place, because you're like, if you're like me, you one day I like fucking, neuro drum and bass, and the next day I listen to like indie emo rock, and it's like, and then when I sit down at the computer and I listen to like gangster drug dealing rap, and then I sit down at the computer, I'm like, okay, time to like make Protohype music, and I'm like, okay, club, what's gonna work in the club, and then it's just like, okay, cool, because I think that's how everyone's individual paths kind of determine then their trajectory of the way that their music goes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. I find that, I mean, I think I like more music than the amount of music that I enjoy is so broad stylistically, that it's so hard for me to figure out where does my brand fit into what I like. And so I just kind of have to what's the word? I just kind of have to let up on what I'm like. I have to let up on my specific goal to create a specific kind of music to serve this brand as Au5, and I just end up kind of just making whatever I feel like making.
Serve the brand.
Yeah,
It's so accurate.
that may be the long road. I mean, I've been doing this for 10 years, and I see these artists what seems like overnight, within a single year, just go from nothing to just like main stage A-list artists. And I'm like, well, I'm definitely not doing that.
Right.
Like if I try to do that, it doesn't feel right. Like it's hard to restrict myself to one thing. I don't think I could be happy. I guess I'm not necessarily treating I'm not treating the whole like electronic music production career as like I'm not that business focused. I'd say I just want to create what makes me happy, and luckily, we have a great manager.
Yeah.
Who lets us do whatever we want, and he figures out that stuff.
So for you guys who don't know, me and Austin and I have the same manager and booking, right? Are you booking through Alex, or are you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right,
yeah, Alex.
and booking agent. Austin and I have known each other for a long time, and I think the last show that we played was at Foundation, Seattle. May that nightclub rest in peace. But
yeah, oh yeah.
but yeah, no, that was a Simplify. What was it, 10-year anniversary or something? 5-year anniversary, something like that.
Yeah,
that was a fun show.
That was what, 2017, I think.
That was, if not before that, but yeah, 2017. That sounds about right. The past 3 years feel like 10 years to me. I don't know if it's like what's happening, or I'm just getting older, or like I don't know, but yeah, it feels like a long time ago. Cool. So yeah, this year does feel like 2 years for sure.
Yes,
really does. Cool. So tonight, that was a great intro. And I hope you guys know a little bit more about Austin now. And what we're gonna do tonight is we're gonna do a bunch of music production stuff, but we're gonna let's kind of go. Let's go. Yeah, let's go. So I think we're just gonna let's just dive into the session. So
cool.
Let's make sure this stream. I think you might need to resend me that link.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Here,
no, do I? Yes. Let me see if I have my browser history here.
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't mind resending it.
Listen to web client. Start listening. Got it. I'm in.
Cool. I'm going to start transmission. So you should be able to hear this. Wait. I can't hear this.
We have stereo.
Nice. Okay, cool. I'm going to share my screen, and yeah, let's intro.
Okay, cool. So if you guys, I'm just talking to the chat. If you guys have any questions, remember hit the Q&A. You know what? I know we had initially talked about doing just like a sound design kind of run through real quick, but I feel like there's so much here.
Yeah.
To go over that might not even be necessary. And then when we get to it, we'll get to it.
Okay.
Why don't we have a listen through of the tune? You want to give like a breakdown on the tune and you know what it is?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, this song that I have open right
Let me
here
get you set up real quick. Go ahead.
is this song is my latest, well, technically my second from last release. It is my remix of the APEK, Man Cub, and Halion track "Breathe in the Moment," released on Enhanced. Yeah, it's basically very uplifting, energetic, melodic dubstep, which is kind of, I'd say probably what I'm best known for, or probably best at making. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so this the original song I think was released like a year ago, and it's really nice, really poppy. Should I play through the original song first, just so people get a sense, or
Yeah, maybe we do a skim through the original and
Okay.
a play through your remix.
Okay, yeah, sure, cool. So yeah, hopefully everyone can hear this. Okay, and levels are good.
Levels are good. You know what, Austin? It sounds like it was coming through twice. Is that possible?
Oh, let me check my.
Yeah,
sorry,
there's a
let me
bit
check
of an
my
echo.
Zoom.
Sounds like a double output.
Could that be the case? So I only have one listen to output. Let me check my Zoom controls. Sorry about that.
All good.
Audio. Okay. It shouldn't be doubling up.
Oh,
Yeah, I have share computer sound off.
Maybe it has to do with the audio movers. This like the channel that I have pulled up or something like that. Like I've got to change my output or something like that.
Do you hear it as doubled, or
I heard it
is
as
it just
doubled.
you did? Okay.
So that's why I was thinking that it wasn't just the stream.
Do you have two tabs open by chance?
Not that I know of. I'm gonna I guess in theory it's possible. I do have two tabs open. Aha! Okay, let's try this again.
Okay.
I had two tabs open.
Cool. Here, I'll start from here.
Yeah, we should be good to go now.
Took a million miles to finally get
all good.
to you. If you only knew. And I could show you every faded scar, but none of it would matter in your arms. I just wanna crash into you and breathe in the moment. Time barely moves, and we don't even notice. My heart's breaking open. Breathe in the moment.
So yeah, you get the idea.
Very tight. That vocal's
it's-
insane.
Oh yeah, I think Halion is one of the best EDM vocalists at the moment.
Yeah, that was fire.
She's probably yeah, she's.
I bet you heard that vocal and you were like, I'm gonna murder this one. Like this is all you dreamed of.
Oh yeah. So I guess I could play through mine, but first I want to say, yeah, pretty much the entire song or the entire remix is only really includes the original vocal a cappella.
Very cool.
There is a little bit of percussive stuff, because there's like that top layer, future bassy, trappy, percussive stuff that I left in here, but everything else is completely rewritten. The first thing that I wanted to convey, because this vocal, I listened to it a few times and I was experimenting with a couple different things, and I was like, I tried to up the tempo, I tried to turn the tempo down. I was like, what is this really trying to say? So I took a step back, and the vocal, to me, it kind of just, and the title of the song, "Breathe in the Moment." It's like it's about being present. You're in this space that is tranquil and fulfilling, and that there doesn't need anything else to happen. There's nothing that needs to be anticipated. There's nothing that is pulling you towards the past. It's like this is a very here and now kind of message that's coming across, and I wanted to expound on that a little bit more. I think the original song conveys that well, but it's with the chord progression and instrumentation, it kind of feels a little bit more melancholy to me, whereas I wanted it to be something that is like feels like newer and fresher with a little bit of I don't know. I'll just play the intro. Basically, I completely reharmonized the chord progression. I first started out with just a piano, and I was just jamming on the piano with the vocal playing, just to get some kind of idea or some kind of riff down. And I landed on this.
Why don't we just do like a full run through real quick of the whole thing before we go too deep into it?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Let's listen to it.
Standing at the edge of paradise, watching moments of my life flash in my mind. It took a million miles to finally get to you. If you only knew, and I could show you everything. None of it would matter in your eyes. I just wanna I used to hold on to the pain like a photograph. It was all I had, and I could show you everything scar, but none of it would matter in your arms. I just wanna crash into you and breathe in the moment. Time moves and we don't even notice. My heart's breaking open. So breathe in the moment. I just wanna crash into you and breathe in the moment. Time moves and we don't even notice. My heart's breaking open. So breathe in the moment. So breathe in the moment.
Wow. Insane.
Yeah.
Insane.
It pretty much just tapers out with a little tempo slow down at the very end here.
I was gonna say I saw the tempo automation earlier, and I was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, it's just at the end right here.
So cool, dude. Ah, yes, a little swag at the end.
Yeah.
So good. Chat,
Thanks,
give
man.
it up. That was so awesome, dude. That middle section, I floated away for a second. I don't know where I went, but that was so. The art of the breakdown was just perfected here. That was so awesome. That was so musically intelligent for me. That was so enjoyable. I can't wait to listen to that like a lot.
Thank you, dude. I
Very
appreciate
cool.
that.
Very cool. Cool. So let's so cool. Let's start with a bit of a walkthrough. I know you had started talking about should we just kind of walk through?
Yeah.
I feel like it might take a year if we would just kind of walk through the whole thing, but
Every single thing.
What are your fucking computer specs? I'm just curious. This is a massive session.
Yeah. I'm kind of surprised that it's playing through smoothly. So
Yeah, that was a clean one. Oh shit.
let's see. What do I got going
good.
on here? So I have, I'm using the AMD Ryzen Threadripper 1920X, which is kind of dated by now. You can get it for like $300. It's 12 core, 24 threads. Right now it's 3.7 gigahertz. But my memory I have 96 gigs of RAM. And that serves me pretty well, especially with like big sample libraries.
Okay.
I think that's the main thing that really does it.
Sure. Yeah, I just upgraded my RAM from 216s to 416s, and man,
Nice.
Was
So
yeah,
you're rocking 64 now.
yeah, 64 at 3600.
Nice.
Was
Yeah,
was
I
a
mean the
big
reason
upgrade.
the reason I have so much isn't really for music production, but it's because I do like video production and that sort of stuff. And yeah, RAM gets eaten up real quick when you're rendering.
What a
So,
flex. What a flex. Okay, cool. Let's do it. Also,
Anyway.
another quick question. What is your Ableton skin? I love it.
Oh, thanks. This is a custom one that I made from. If you go to abletonthemes.com, you can make your own themes in the browser. So,
What?
yeah, you should check it out. This theme is called Au5 Deep Space 3, I think. Chill Space 1. That's what it's called. Chill Space 1. And you'll see my name next to it. So you could download
so it's
that.
available.
Mhm.
You can just
Yep.
make them?
Yeah, you can just make them. It's pretty simple. You just click on any, color or parameter, and then you have a color picker, and yeah, it's really
This is
self-explanatory.
visually pleasing for sure. Cool. That's cool.
Yeah. Anyway, here, actually, let me full screen this. That might be a little bit better. Cool. So yeah, starting from the beginning. I guess I'm just gonna go through like the most interesting, noteworthy things of this. Not like every single little detail. But yeah, if there's anyone in the chat who has like specific questions about.
Yeah, if I'll be manning the chat here, and if I will keep eyes on them. And chat, if you got questions about something specific, we'll hit them up then.
Cool.
Cool.
All right, so yeah, this intro starts off with what sounds like just a piano, but there's a couple other things going on. I'm using Omnisphere for kind of like a.
I'm gonna make
This is actually kind of part of the piano, this kind of music box thing. This piano is actually just a. This is the Steinway grand piano from Logic's EXS24 sampler. I used to have Logic when I was on a Mac, and I just grabbed the the sampler instrument from there.
No
and
way.
put it in.
Epic.
Yeah, the Ableton sampler can load EXS24 Logic instruments, which is super cool. I didn't realize that until like
Oh wow.
last year.
Oh wow.
Just drag them in and loads them up. It can also load up sound fonts too, if for whatever reason you want sound fonts. But yeah, the other layer that I'm using in this intro is I found this on Splice. It's called Cooking Game Loop Ambience Beach.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's from some game rip. I don't know, but it's this beach atmosphere.
Birds.
And yeah, seagulls and waves.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of, I wanted to build, I really like making songs that feel like you're in a space and where the space and environment is evolving around you. Kind of like, what is your experience traversing through this new environment or this new world? And I think when you have something that's not really I'm just have like a simple piano thing going on, there kind of needs to be something else to fill it out, and I felt like this de-sterilized it, kind of made it feel like it was a real space, and I think it kind of lends itself to the lyrics.
Wait,
standing.
Ableton can do alchemy? Sorry, just an aside here.
So this is actually, can I open it? This is an illegitimate version of Alchemy because Camel Audio sold it to Apple, and you can't
Right.
buy it anymore. And I used to have it back when I was using like
Yeah.
Logic 8 and Logic 9.
Same.
And I found a download for it with the libraries. And so yeah, I'm using Alchemy. It's very unstable. I should probably freeze it, but it has some really nice presets.
Well, I'm on the team that thinks alchemy is better than Omnisphere, but
I kind of have to agree with you. I think it's more intuitive. Plus, it just has some really cool capabilities. Like you can do granular synthesis combined with like additive spectral synthesis.
Cool.
It's just a super powerful thing. I do think that the thing that beats Alchemy though these days, or the equivalent, is UVI Falcon, which is something that I'm still just scratching the surface of. But if you guys haven't checked out UVI Falcon, man, that is probably like the end-all multi-layer synth. I mean, it's basically a DAW inside of your DAW. It's wicked. It can do some crazy stuff that
I know that
seen in other synths.
I mentor someone who uses Logic, and he's the only person I know that uses Falcon, and he's always preaching the resampling of it. It's a sampler as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it has a lot of different types of samplers. You can do, I mean, it has granular modes. It has like modal stuff that I don't even really know. Like it's stuff that's new to me, and
Wow, that
I'm
says a
really
lot.
excited to check it out.
Cool.
To dive even deeper into it. I just scratched the surface, but you can. It's stuff that I'm not familiar with. It's like the
Cool.
next level of synthesis.
Wow.
For sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Carry on.
All right. Anyway.
Carry on. Yes.
Let's see what's going on. So the vocal comes in. Yeah, vocal comes in about here. Originally, I got sent a single stem vocal, but like with harmonies and everything in it, and I was like, I'm gonna be reharmonizing this, I know, and I'm going to be using some spectral morphing with chords, like vocoding. And so yeah, I requested having all of the dry stems, which they gave me. And the cool thing about that was I realized there was a hidden verse that didn't make it to the original cut.
Oh,
which I
wow.
ended up using.
Nice.
Yeah, which I think is way more musical and puts context to the story. But yeah, we'll get to that.
Cool.
Let's see what's going on here.
Stand at the edge of paradise,
Those vocal.
watching moment. It took 1,000,000 miles to finally get to you.
Yeah, so I got these Omnisphere. Kind of sounds like string section, but let's see what this is actually. This is, yeah, Phoenix Rising. It's I don't know, just some synthy cinematic thing.
Very
And
cool.
then I have another. Oh yeah, then I have the alchemy layer up there. Just like really bringing in the chords, making a lush soundscape before the drums come in.
Free fading sky, but none of it would matter.
Just a little serum drone for the bass.
Yeah.
I'm also putting it through this ridiculous rack that I made. It was just a bunch of serum hyperdimensions together to kind of give it
Interesting.
that like metallic sound. Without it, just sounds really sterile.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
multiple hypers. How are you swinging that without phasing?
Well, it's all phasing, really.
Right. Okay.
That's kind of how it's getting that sound. You can do it with pretty much any chorus effect. You just stack them together and then just do some post EQing because you're gonna get some crazy resonances. And then just like throw an out on it. And yeah, you can get this crazy liquid morphing sound if you just like stack like a dozen choruses on something.
Interesting.
Definitely encourage people to check that out. I would go into it, but it's a whole thing.
No stress.
That I don't necessarily want to get into right now. It's also something that I'm kind of preserving for a future thing.
Cool. Save it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get too into it, but then I also have this. What is this? Yes. So I'm using Reactor Prism, and I love Reactor Prism for bells. I think it's a little unstable sometimes, but it's super flexible with the types of timbres, metallic, dissonant, inharmonic timbres that you can get with bells, and I love bells. I mean,
Of course.
so like.
Oh wow.
As you can hear, you can just like a lot of cool stuff you can do. It's basically like a glorified. If you ever used Collision or Corpus,
Sure.
you can kind of think of it as that, but way more capable. Yeah. All right. So
Physical modeling.
It's a physical modeling synth or modal. I guess that's what they call it.
Got it.
So this next section, let's see.
I could show you everything. I just wanna crash
This is when the percussion comes in.
into you.
These are just kind of, I think these are samples from the original song. Let's see. Oh, so yeah, that snare, which, yeah, it's just this wood block snare that I made a long time ago.
Okay.
And then a sample of me actually clapping, which is
Nice.
panned. That layers together really well with a little bit of reverb. Oh yeah, and I've also been really like enjoying using water samples as kind of like impacts like this, where I'll take
A water impact.
yeah,
What up, Funkcase? Welcome, Funkcase team.
someone doing a cannonball, and then I'll just like frequency shift it, filter it, do some filter automation, some grain delay and reverb, and then you'll get like a
wow.
That's just a really nice layer with a kick
Wow,
drum.
that's so cool.
Oh yeah, and then this ride bell, doing some transposition automation. I don't know. I just love going in on the transition.
Yeah, can we talk about transitions for a minute and how important they are? I think that this is something I preach on the daily about. Like, listen, there's a moment here. You have a moment. You know, music is just a collection of moments, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a moment that is so important. Just because it's not your drop or not your intro or not the beginning of your build-up or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I would love to see what other, you know, transitional techniques you're using, because it's butter. It's like one of those things you don't notice when it's done well.
That's the thing, yeah. And without it, it sounds weird. And that's
right.
So usually, how I kind of write music is like, I'll work on one section until I have, I'll work on one section. I kind of just work in columns. I work one block at a time. The next section, obviously, I want it to have a different chord progression. I want it to have different instruments. I want it to have like a different groove, more energy, and the transitioning it is, it can, you know, depending on the elements that you're using to transition it, or the methods that you're using to subdue certain things or automate certain things, can make or break the transition. It can sound jarring, or it can sound like you don't even, you know, you're not even aware of what's happening technically. You know, it just feels like, okay, that totally makes sense. It just flows into the next section. So I really like using, for transitions, I really like using things like impacts and sweeps. Not only just like things that you know, impact and then taper off forward in time, but also things that slowly kind of swell and anticipate that moment of transition.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that. Usually, I'll do that by, I mean, for this for instance, like I'm introducing these clock ticks. This is just a drum rack with an arpeggiator with 4 different clock tick samples, and this is kind of subliminal. There's no beat in this section yet, but these clock ticks are creating a rhythmic subdivision, mm-hmm. which I think kind of pull your ear towards anticipating the actual rhythm of the beat that comes in the next section. Filter automation on synths. Let's see what I got going on here.
I saw a lot of like EQs moving throughout the intro.
Oh yeah, dude. I think I do EQ automation on like half of the channels in my songs. It's super essential. This right here, this alchemy patch, I mean, it's going from, you know, filtering out the mids, and then all the way up at the end is like fully open and bright, and then I'll taper it back down. And then here, I think, what am I doing with this omnisphere? Am I also filtering this? Let's see. No, not right there.
You use the Velocity MIDI plugin on all of your melodic elements?
Not.
I see it on a lot of them on this one, at least the intro.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think, yeah, I'm not really sure why I'm using this. It's kind of just a fixed thing, but the velocity MIDI effect here is really useful, especially when, like, instead of going into, like, let's say I want to increase the velocity of all of these notes over the course of, you know, this many measures. What I could do is join them all together, and then I could like select them all and then like control click and then try to find like a nice ramp.
Whoa, I've never seen that one before.
Yeah. If you select all your notes and then pop open this velocity thing down here, if you hold down control, you have
oh my gosh,
just like, yeah, just shape your velocity curves like that. But It's really limiting, in my opinion, especially if you don't want to just like break up a bunch of clips. And let's say there is velocity articulation in there, and you just want to kind of increase or like add on to the already existing velocity articulation. Use a velocity MIDI effect, and then just automate your like just change your out high, and then just automate your drive or compression, or automate these over your timeline, and it makes it so much easier. I like to use fixed and then just automate the out high, so then I can, it's just the same, it just, whatever your velocity is. Let's say you performed it and you wanted them all to be the same velocity. Just used fixed mode, and then you can just automate out high, and then just use an automation curve to control your velocity. I do this for like drum rises a lot as well. I find that really easy to just get the velocity curve you want much faster than working with MIDI.
Right.
So as far as transition goes, I'm always using like little reverse things. Like that, for instance. I'll just take a bell and then just reverse it. I like using stuff that is not your typical like, not just using like your typical white noise riser, or not just your typical like reverse 909 crash. I like using stuff that is a little bit more organic sounding. But I also do have this, as far as like risers and downlifters and stuff. Lately, I've really liked. I really like using just simple synths and filters for this. Like this noise lifter here. It's just I don't know why I'm using two operators. I could just use one. It's just an operator, and then I'm just using I'm just automating the bandpass filter. The cool thing about this is I don't have to worry about dragging in a sample and then making sure that it is, it decays at the right amount of time, or it like sweeps up at the right amount of time. I can just draw on the velocity curve of how much tension or how much hype I want within a specific area. And this is, all these things kind of just add together. Like if I solo the effects.
Yeah, let's listen to that.
It's just this background atmosphere that kind of permeates through everything and kind of just gives it energy, or releases energy where it's necessary.
Sure.
I mean, it would still be a good song without it, but it wouldn't have that same kind of it would have the same kind of dynamics and ebb and flow. Yeah, there's not too much going on right there. It's just pretty simple.
Yeah, the filter delay on the reverse bell thing is very cool.
Yeah, that's yes. So that's grain delay.
It's grain delay, not filter delay. Okay, cool, gotcha.
So let's see. So it's actually a combination of things. I am automating this. Let's see. Yeah, I'm using transposition automation. So it's like a really splashy peak right there. If I take out all these effects, it sounds like this. Sounds kind of stupid.
It's that Valhalla.
Yeah, grain delay. Just to kind of like diffuse the grains. Then the Valhalla room. Yeah, this is. You really can't go wrong with this.
Right.
This reverb. It's great. Filtering out some lows, and then using a glue compressor to kind of increase the sustain to get these really low notes.
It does sound like the place that someone's saying it sounds like PlayStation 2. It actually really does.
Man, I've actually heard quite a bit of people mention that in my other songs. Like, my song, the intro to my song, Eden, sounds like the PS1 startup sound.
Interesting.
Apparently, I don't know. It's just
it's in you.
Just a high pass automation of like a super.
I mean,
song.
Imagine what the guy who made the PS1 intro was doing. I mean, like probably doing what you were doing a little bit. I don't know. I mean,
I don't know. I mean, it's a sick sound for it being that old.
Right. True. Right ahead for sure. Quick question. I don't unless this goes too deep. I'm just curious about your routing in your Ableton session.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. So I have everything set up in just a couple groups really. My auto load is I have a drums group, effects group, synths, basses, they're pretty self-explanatory. Synths is really just like anything that is melodic or, isn't, anything that is tonal or melodic that isn't a bass or isn't some kind of like transitional effect.
Sure.
And how I have these routed is my synths group and my basses group. I have these routed to, I have these set to sends only, and then I have them routed, or I have the send to 0. And what that does is it routes the output of these to this return track that I have down here called sidechain. And usually I'll have some kind of, it's for sidechain compression.
Sure.
And the reason that I use this is because, for one, it's no matter like how zoomed in I am in some track, like it'll always be there, and I could always like bypass the sidechain if I want to. How I'm actually triggering this sidechain, it's a MIDI triggered sidechain.
Sure.
And I know that a lot of people will use like ghost clicks or ghost kicks, and it'll be sample based, or they'll have a separate track, a separate MIDI track to trigger their sidechain. But I really like using drum rack. One sec, I gotta move this zoom thing. Okay, I really like using drum rack. I have all of my kick and snare samples in this main drum rack here. All of my hi-hats and tops I have in a different subgroup, which I'll get to in a minute. But I have all my like, kicks and stuff. I don't know why that didn't. Yeah, snare, kicks and snare. But at the bottom, if I scroll down one at B0, the note B0, I have an external instrument device, and I route that to my sidechain track, and then I route that to the whatever it may be. I'm using Shaperbox. Sometimes I use Serum Effects, or I was using Serum Effects as a volume shaper. And so I find that really easy to trigger sidechain, because all I need to do is when I go into my drum rack, I know that the bottommost note is the sidechain trigger. So I can just, choose what notes I want to sidechain. So I don't have to switch between separate tracks, or it's just full control, everything on one page right there. I just find that a really great workflow for me,
Very cool.
at least. Yeah. And the cool thing about having a dedicated sidechain is, like, for instance, during the rise, when I have like a bunch of kicks going or something, I can just automate the
Dry wet.
The dry wet of that, and it just sounds really natural. It's just really easy. I don't have multiple sidechain compressors in different groups that I have to keep in mind. And also, if I'm rendering stems, it makes it way easier to just bypass the sidechain, render the stems that way, because then the sidechain isn't on any individual instrument track.
Totally.
So I also have this tops subgroup. So this is where I do something a little bit different. Tops is basically like, crash cymbals, hi-hats, rides, that kind of stuff. And I find that to make it sound natural, I used to have nothing on here. It just used to be totally dry. But then I tried routing that through my sidechain bus, and then I found that I'm losing some attack of my cymbals. So I just use a simple glue compressor, sidechained to my kick and snare track, and that really glues them together nicely. So if I play, like, for instance, like the drop percussion, you'll hear that all of these percussions sound pretty nice and glued together. There is some sidechain compression going on without it. I don't know. It's subtle, and but it's not too intense to where it's completely drowning out the articulation of the cymbals.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess should we talk about drums, or?
Let's talk about drums. I
Cool.
would love to look at the drums, maybe talk about. Yeah, so we had talked about let's look at the snare. I would love to know how you go about. So there's basic drum this. And I think that, again, this is still a fairly advanced technique, drum synthesis, but overall the concept is fairly simple. But you go and watch most drum synthesis tutorials on YouTube or wherever you may try and learn about making drums. You're going to learn how to make just like a doom, like type of thing. I'm curious about how you go about, not all of them, obviously, that's not what I'm speaking of. I love yours, but just to make that, like, I guess it would be more about layering.
Right. Yeah. So for this snare, for instance, as you can see in this instrument rack, I have a bunch of different samples, and my process for making drums in a song is throughout the track, I find myself trying out different samples or different layers, and auditioning them on and off, and just seeing what fits the most. So it's constantly an evolving thing throughout the session for me, just to figure out like what fits the best with the instrumentation that I have. And like most of the time, it's like using a drum sample from one song that sounds amazing in another song, it just doesn't necessarily work with the other synths and basses and instrumentation. And I think it's a very specific thing to the song. However, there are fundamental principles that apply to, all of the hard-hitting drums in all of my songs. So the ones that I settled on are these 2 layers here. And really it's 3 layers. But yeah, let me just walk you through this. So where's my snare? I think this is the snare. Yeah, so that's the snare. Yeah. So I'm going to bypass this gunshot layer. It's really just like the tail end of this one snare that I made a while ago. Honestly, I don't remember how I made this one. Definitely with some delay. But the real meat is this. It's a serum, and let me bypass some of these other effects that's going on. So I have a little bit of reverb, some frequency shifter and overdrive. So that's actually what it sounds like. If we open up this serum, you'll see what's going on. So I'm actually using serum as a synth as well as a sampler. You can drag whatever sample you want. You can drag drum samples into this noise oscillator. And so if I bypass oscillator A and then bypass these effects, so just the noise oscillator is playing. I'll bypass the filter too. So this is an old snare that I had that I am just resampling with serum. And the cool thing about this is you can use envelopes and LFOs to modulate like pitch, for instance. Like I could bypass this modulator, and if I enable it, it's subtle, but it's taking out some of it's making the transient much shorter and snappier. But I found that sound wasn't actually like deep enough for this. So what I did was I routed that the noise oscillator, which is playing the snare sample, to the filter, and there's a high pass filter going on. Kind of filtered out those low mids, and then I just added my own with oscillator A.
Your own transient.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, kind of like my own body of the snare. Like this is what it sounds like. Just like a doop. It's really not that impressive, but layered together, it sounds like a unified thing. And yeah, am I using coarse tuning? No, it's just, yeah, I'm just using a little bit of, dude, I don't even know how this is. Oh yeah, I'm using a little bit of level enveloping. And I find that when you are introducing a lower tone when you're synthesizing drums, you kind of want the transient to have a little bit of space. So like if this low tone was playing with the transient, it may sound all right, but I find that giving it a little bit of attack, a little bit of space, kind of lets the snap cut through harder, especially when you're compressing and doing some post-processing, which I'm doing in the effects. I have a distortion on. I'm using soft clip. It's really subtle, and then I'm using compressor. I think that's what I had on here.
I don't think you were compressing, actually.
Oh, yeah. Just a little bit of EQ. I mean, this is super minor stuff. The real noticeable effects comes in with this the reverb. So sometimes I like doing this, sometimes I hate doing this, but sometimes it works. If you have a little bit of low mid reverb, it can actually make it sound punchier. I think it's not necessarily punchier, but just like bigger. It sounds like it's in a room. And then I use frequency shifter a lot to repitch my drums. The reason why I use frequency shifter is because frequency shifter is going to affect the shifting of the low frequencies perceptively much more drastically than the higher frequencies. What that means is you can tune the body of the snare up or down without really affecting the top end or the timbre of the snare. If you're using a pitch shifter, then you're gonna come into some issues like it'll smear transients, or you'll get phasing issues. There's a whole bunch of issues with using pitch shifters. Or if you're just transposing the sample, that's going to shorten or lengthen the sample, and it may totally change how the transient sounds. So I think a frequency shifter is probably the best thing for transposing drum samples or anything that's kind of atonal. And then a bunch of overdrive, looks like. Oh yeah, let me revert my reverb. So the overdrive kind of warms it up and gives it that like hot crispiness. And then I'm using an EQ8 because there's a bunch of these low frequencies that come in. Mm-hmm. And also using a steep high pass filter will introduce some phase rotation at your cutoff point. Basically what that means is it will delay the lower frequencies slightly more than the higher frequencies, and it kind of gives this like chunkier dispersion effect. Like if you just stack a bunch of steep low cut filters, you'll notice that it'll start to sound rounder and kind of dispersed. I don't know, it's a subtle thing, but it's something that I use a lot. And then on my entire drum rack for my kick and snare, I like to top everything off with a saturator. Just on digital clip, on soft clip mode. That's basically just making it a hard clip. I shouldn't actually have DC on because that's a filter, but doesn't matter. But at the very end of the chain, I use this thing called Signalizer. It's a free plugin. It's a vector scope, oscilloscope, and spectrum, and it has a cool feature in its oscilloscope. It has an envelope triggering mode, so I can sculpt my drums and see exactly what's going on. As soon as I hit it, I can see the waveform of it, and I can, remove my reverb and see how it changes the waveform, or I can add, this other sample and see how it affects the waveform. And this is really important. So how to make my drums sound as loud as possible without them sounding clipped or just over the top is I kind of like to go for clipping it as hard as I can until it starts to look like a brick, and then just back it off just a little bit. Like same with my kick too, like this drop kick, like the tops aren't completely flat, the transient is flat, but like if I am not using this saturator and I play this kick, or the snare for
snare, same thing.
Yeah, same thing. You'll see that the transient's much louder, and then I just want the transient and the body to be pretty much neck and neck with each other as far as amplitude goes. So that's why I use the hard clipper. And it really doesn't change the sound much at all if you're not pushing it too hard. And I leave my drums at 0 dB, and that's kind of my reference point for the rest of my instruments. That's how I know that my drums are going to be the loudest thing. And yeah, I mean, if my drums aren't going over 0, then nothing else needs to go over 0 for it to be that loud.
Interesting. So you use your drum level as a reference point.
Yeah, I use my drum level audibly as well. Like,
sure.
I don't like my drums going over 0. If my drums, however loud my drums sound clipping at 0 dB, that's my reference point for the perceptive loudness of all of my other instruments. Yeah, all right. Techie, nerdy stuff out of the way.
We had to get it done.
Yeah. The name of the analyzer is Signalizer. Let me just type that signalizer. That's what that's called. Cool. Yeah. What should we move on to?
So okay, next. Let's talk. I mean, should we get to the drop? Shall we dance? Are we there yet? I feel like there's stuff we're skipping. Well, how about the? Oh, we're going to talk about like the atmospheric elements, maybe, right? We kind of went over that. Maybe the vocal chopping thing. I still at some point would like to talk about the approach to arrangement a little bit, but
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, what should I start first?
let's start with. Okay, so I guess we kind of got ahead of ourselves a little bit with what we were planning on talking about, but maybe before we get to the drop, and without going too far into it, let's speak about how you got to this point with. So you got the vocal. That's all you had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So
yeah. Let's talk about the chords,
big step back,
and stuff like that. Yeah, big step back. Yeah.
So the interesting thing is the vocal. I don't like whenever I do a remix, particularly, or whenever I get a vocal a cappella, I don't like to listen to whatever reference chords they had or whatever the original chord progression of the song is. This is something that I personally really love exploring. I like just trying to figure out what kind of chords work with a vocal. And I mean, I can try to explain it with a lot of theory, but I tend to find that can be just really dry and boring and confusing.
I feel you. So what key are we in?
So we're in D. D major, kind of.
Right.
It's D minor and major. It's not a set key signature, but yeah, it's in D. So the intro to the song, though, I'm not actually playing D, and the reason why is because I guess I'll go into a little bit of theory. So D is the tonic or the home base of the song. Like D, when you play the D, it sounds like it's like a release of tension. It sounds like, okay, this is the most grounded sounding tone in the song.
Mm-hmm.
And something that I like to do a lot of times is I've been doing this I do this in a lot of my remixes, is in the beginning of the song and during the verse of the song, I don't like to introduce the tonic just yet. The reason why is because I find that kind of swimming around the tonic will build this anticipatory feeling. I usually like to release the tension or introduce the tonic whenever there's the chorus of the song hitting. So like, let me play right here. So this chord progression sounds much more resolved than this chord progression before it. Like this. This is
the relative minor, or?
So it's the 6 and 7 chord. So the
okay, so not at all. It's
submediant and submediant and subtonic notes, to be technical. Sure. So it's the 6 and 7. The 1 is the tonic. So I'm just switching between the 6 and the 7, kind of building that tension and just seeing how far we can go with that. The cool thing about that is also that if we're in minor, the 6 and the 7 are going to be major chords. So it's going to have this uplifting kind of mysterious, not mysterious, but like a mystical fantasy kind of feeling, if that makes sense. And I think the instrumentation really lends itself to that. But yeah, so I'm just dancing around that, and it isn't until this next part that I decided to introduce the tonic. And honestly, how I came about this is just using my ear and just trial and error. Like, I can't really explain it any better than that.
But not technically, though, right? Because you were like, I'm in D, I'm going to play the 6 and 7 chord.
Yeah, and I think it's a combination of those two things. It's like there's the left side of my brain that's like, okay, or sorry, there's the right side of my brain that's like the intuition. It's like what sounds good, what feels good, and then I'm constantly switching between the right and left side of my brain, where my left side is analyzing like, okay, does this make sense theoretically? And if so, then let's keep moving on. Keep feeling out what you're feeling, and then, yeah. So there's this constant interplay between intuitive and analysis going on in my brain, and that's kind of how I came up with this chord progression. When I listened back to the original song after I established chord progression, I was like, whoa, okay, that's definitely different, and I'm glad that it's different. Just because I don't know, I like making remixes that sound like a totally new thing from the original song. Anyway, yeah. So oftentimes what I'll do is I'll try out multiple chord progressions. I'll start out with usually just like simple triads. I'll just have like a pad sound. Start out with simple triads. See what harmonizes with the vocal the best. See what kind of cadences resolve the best over the vocal melody, and then I'll kind of just like pick the ones that work the best, or essentially pick the ones, because they'll all the ones that I'll stick with, they all kind of work, but I'll pick the ones that serve the storytelling the most. In this case, it's like painting the environment. Something is about to happen, and then this part here, which is much more resolving sounding. There's also a little bit of sadness in there, because the tonic, the D chord, is minor.
Right. This is more of a traditional, like, effective, this is it type chord progression.
Yeah. And then where the peak, or I guess like the hook of the song is, this is kind of like the pre-chorus, vocally speaking, or like lyrically speaking. And then this next part is where everything kind of flips, because this is like the pinnacle of the song, of the vocal. And I decided to switch that D minor to a D major, and it brings this whole new like color to the thing. So it's like
I just wanna crash into you and breathe in the moment.
and lyrically it reflects that. It's like it's talking about, you know, I just want to crash into you and breathe in the moment. It's like this is a euphoric moment kind of thing. And
So at 25,
a lot of things
we have a
to
D
consider.
minor, and at 33, we have a D major.
Yeah, so if I just solo these, if I just solo the synths. And then it goes into. And then I switch it up a little bit with this.
Isn't that fifth chord borrowed as well?
The one at 37?
Mm-hmm. That's another one where I'm like, ooh, hello.
Yeah, so this chord is the same as the intro chord. So this is the sixth chord, or it's the sixth chord.
Okay, so that's just the six. It felt very powerful.
Yeah, and I think the reason why it feels that way is because it is not necessary. Having a major tonic and then also having the major six, they're not in the same key signature. There's modal interchange going on. So
Sure.
like that to that, I don't know. It just kind of works.
Oh,
Ultimately, it just kind of works.
It works so well. Hey, let's
Yeah.
let's tap into some Q&A real quick. I'm just
Cool.
gonna pull some of these production ones. One moment. While we're kind of on the topic of we're working with the vocal and stuff, Tuna is asking about if you could show the vocal processing, vocal layers,
Oh, yeah, sure.
and overall creative techniques to make it sound super ambient and full.
Yeah, so let's see. So here's how I have my vocals laid out. Usually how I do this is I'll have all of the dry stems just, yeah, just laid out. And each one I will, oh, that's why this track has so much latency. I'm using RX Mouth denoiser. Anyway,
Gotcha.
yeah. So yeah, I'll take each one of these, the leads and harmonies. Usually the lead I will compress first, and then it'll go into this huge, I'll create a group and then it'll go into this huge rack of, processing. So processing bypassed, it sounds like this. And also these vocals are probably already sound really
Yeah, they're just
good.
fantastic vocals. Yeah, that helps.
Standing at the edge of paradise, watching moments of my life flash in my
And
mind.
then chorus.
I just wanna crash into you and breathe in the moment.
Yeah, and then with the vocal chain, it sounds like this.
I just wanna crash into you and breathe in the moment.
So I can walk through quickly like what kind of processing I'm doing.
Yeah, let's run it.
Let's run it. Let me bypass some of this stuff.
Do you think Soothe is an essential tool nowadays?
It's I really like using it because it just works. It takes a lot of guesswork out of. It's like an auto EQ and so much more. I kind of feel guilty using it just because I think it can definitely be abused, and I think I'm starting to hear, like we're starting to hear the cumulative sound of Soothe in a lot of songs.
Yeah.
It
You probably are starting to hear that, but I bet you not many other people are starting to hear that.
Fair enough. I think it's a cool sound. It's very pleasing, but I do think that we're going to start to appreciate. I think it is kind of a trend. I don't know how long it's going to be for, but I do think that there is value in having some things that are a little bit harsh or a little bit resonant. I think that brings the liveliness back to certain things.
Right. It's not like Soothe on the master.
I mean,
oh, a little. Oh no. Okay.
Sometimes it's really just for like the top end de-essing, like
Sure.
8K and above.
Okay.
But,
Noted.
It does work well. It's extremely transparent. I don't really know.
Have you
where's it
messed with the
really going.
Gullfoss EQ, the EQ before? It's kind of.
I have messed with Gullfoss, and I have mixed feelings about it. I find that it works best when you confine the low and high. When you confine it to very specific mid-range frequencies. If you just put it on like the whole master, at first it sounds good, but I think it only sounds good because of it's something that you haven't heard before. It's a kind of transparent, weird psychoacoustic effect. Every time I've used it on the master, I was like, "Ooh, this sounds good," but I'll keep listening to it. I'm like, "This actually sounds worse." It sounds best usually if I'm confining just the 300 hertz all the way up to like 3K. I think that's where it sounds best. Like 300 to 3K affecting sounds best. It really messes with the dynamics of the bass and like really high treble stuff. It's weird. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, vocal processing.
Vocal process.
So first thing I have is I'm using a Pro Q, and I'm just cutting out some lows and adding a little bit of like a high shelf to add some air in. I'm also using a side channel. I'm using a low cut on the sides at around like 340 hertz. And the reason why is because there's harmonies that are going on that are hard panned, as you can hear.
I just wanna crash into you.
And if I solo this, you'll hear. So that's all anti-phase content in the low mids, and it kind of muddies up. It kind of conflicts with the instrumental, the instruments in the synths group. So I just cut that out for good measure. Then I'm using auto dynamic EQ. Let's see what I'm doing here. It looks like I'm kind of just.
I just wanna.
Oh yeah, this is interesting. So I'm using this mainly as a dynamic EQ. I'm using a low shelf at around 600 hertz, which is kind of like where the fundamental frequencies are of the vocal, and it just has a very fast compression that's going on there.
I just wanna crash into you.
I want to have the fundamental of vocals as stable as possible without the whole vocal sounding like it's super smashed and compressed. And the reason why is because that way, when you do compress it, it's not going to take away from the the top end articulation. I think it's really important to have the fundamental frequencies of the vocal to be almost limited, but in a way that is transparent as possible. And then this band up here, the 7,
I just wanna.
is just a high shelf that's pretty much just de-essing.
Gotcha.
Serum effects. I don't think I actually had this. I don't think I'm actually using this now. Wait, maybe I was. I don't know.
I just wanna.
Definitely wasn't. So yeah, then I'm using Ozone. I think I'm using Ozone. Yeah, I'm using Ozone 5 still, just because
Yee.
it's. I don't know. I love how the exciter sounds. Yeah, so I'm using Ozone's exciter and multi-band compression,
I just wanna crash in.
and I'm going pretty heavy-handed on this. Oftentimes, I will automate this whole thing on and off, usually for drops. The extra multiband compression and excitation makes the vocal cut through more. But in this case, yeah, I mean, I'm just adding more harmonics to the fundamental, and then just adding a lot of air, like in the 10K range, and that just brightens it up. And then this is where the space comes in. This is where I add reverb and delay. So I like to use a split chain. The bottom one is just dry. The top one is wet, so I can compress it. I'm using Valhalla Vintage Verb.
Classic.
And you'll see right afterwards, I have a glue compressor that is sidechain triggered by the entire vocal signal, but pre-effects. So basically what that means is when the vocal is present, the reverb is being ducked. You're not really hearing much reverb, but as soon as the vocal stops singing something and there's some space, the reverb will come in and kind of fill out that space. Without this compressor, the vocal will sound pretty, it'll sound pretty like
Mushy.
mushy. Yeah, it won't be very articulate. Like,
I just wanna crash into you.
versus,
I just wanna crash into you.
Oh yeah.
And breathe.
you get best of both worlds this way. You get
It's that AI reverb, that AI sidechain kind of just
yeah.
doing it for you. It's perfect.
Yeah. This other thing I have here, I guess we could skip ahead to what I'm doing in the last drop. So I have this plugin called Synaptic Morph. This has been my secret weapon for the past, I'd say, year or two. You can kind of think of it as a vocoder, but it is much more precise and hi-fi sounding than a vocoder. It's an FFT processor. Basically, you can take a sidechain signal and you can morph that with a completely different sound. And I am using that to harmonize, to create fake harmonies with these chords here. Pardon if this is loud. Let's down a little bit. So morphing those with the vocal sounds like this.
Crash into you and breathe in the moment.
It sounds subtle, but if I remove the dry signal,
Crash into you and breathe in the moment. Time
it's these chords that I'm harmonizing the vocal with using this. And as you could probably hear, it sounds cleaner than, you know, your typical vocoder.
Yeah, it sounds completely different. It's not. It's like that sounds just amazing.
Yeah, and what I'm using for these chords is actually Harmor. It's pretty simple. I'm
Okay.
using just a saw wave, a bunch of detuned unison, a little bit of harmonizer, and then the trick is so they don't sound too, like, I don't know, full or bloated. It's this harmonic clipping threshold right here. If I have it off, too much mid-range. If I bring it down, it really kind of like whitens whitens the chords, and that makes it a really good modulator for, or I guess a really good carrier for the vocal fake harmonies. Yeah, let me re-enable.
So cool.
this.
Love the Synaptic ones. Dude, Elastic Pitch.
Oh yeah,
Insane. That's the only one I have from Synaptic, and that plugin is amazing.
dude. All of their plugins is just wizardry. I don't understand how they. I mean,
Wormhole
this
is,
one
is wild too.
Yeah, they're doing some crazy stuff over there. So, even Unveil, like de-reverbing things, it works so well. Yeah,
I never tried that one.
Yeah, I think that was one of their first plugins.
Cool.
Anyway, yeah, back to the vocal. I think that was pretty much the processing chain. I'm also using a little bit of delay for these vocals.
And we don't even notice.
Yeah, with a little bit of sidechain compression too. I use mid-side OTT. So this is basically just an OTT, but if you split the mid channel and the side channel, compress them separately, you can get a much broader stereo image. I use this during the vocals in the last drop, and this might sound just like way over powerful, but
To you and breathe in the moment.
it sounds over compressed. But within the context of the last drop instrumentation, it's what allows them to cut through.
Yeah.
And then a little bit of soothe for the mid-range stuff, actually, not even for like the high stuff. And then I think I'm using and then a limiter just to kind of cap it off. You can hear what soothe is cutting out by doing this. That kind of like frequencies.
It's potent.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So cool. Great. Those are good questions. Let's see.
Should we talk
Here's
about some
one.
bass design?
Yeah, let's talk about basses.
Okay.
I like that.
Yeah.
Basses.
Hour 46 in. About time we hit the bass.
I know. Man, you've been doing so great. Don't forget that you can donate to Au5, and you should if you haven't.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've been I got a couple of donations.
There you
so
go.
far. Thank you.
Good job,
Thank
team.
you guys.
More. Okay. Yes, bass design.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, let's talk about this drop. Let me just play through it a little bit and see what's going on. All right. Yeah. Let's just start from the first sound. Okay. First of all, how I have this routed, I actually have this flattened basses track down here that I'm using. But if I if I disable this and enable this one, then we can actually hear where that came from. So yeah, a lot of times what I like to do is I'll arrange basses in a drop, and then once I feel like it sounds pretty good, I will resample all of them into just a single track, mute that. That way I can use those basses and do some audio manipulation. I could do things like stuttering, like, and just get really, get really fine-tuned with it. I also like to use that audio stem as a riser layer. So like, kind of like cut them up and then filter them in. This is happening during the rise. It kind of alludes to what, the sounds that you're going to be hearing in the drop, but like more subdued. So for the drop basses, all right, I am using, the first sound is Harmer. So that's a pretty cool sound.
That's a fire sound. I've been in, I think, denial perhaps about Harmer for a while, just because for a long time I was on Mac and it wasn't an option. And
dude, I know.
Not anymore. So, what would you say on like on a scale of 1 to like awesome?
What, Harmer?
Yeah.
Well,
what about 1 to like you should get it?
If you have Windows, I say like 10, you need to get it. 1, don't bother. I'd say a 9, to be completely honest, because it is just so capable, and it's just so capable in so many ways. It's subtractive, it's additive, it's spectral. You can import images if you want to. You can import sounds. And like time stretch them. There's just so much flexibility. It's kind of ridiculous, and I find it very intuitive. Everything is pretty much on one page. You have some effects and some stuff and envelopes down here, but like there's so many different parameters that you can adjust. And I love additive synthesis or spectral synthesis because it really just it's supernatural to me. It's stuff that you can't do in the real world with regular analog circuitry. And the cool thing about this is you can make it sound very analog. So yeah, I mean, you have a bunch of filters. Its phaser is insane. You also have this spectral display section here, so you can actually visualize the harmonics while you're creating the sound. It's just a really great learning tool also, like just understanding how additive synthesis works and just how sound works as a whole, like how sound is built with sine waves. Like I think it's a great learning tool.
Sure. The FL Studio energy for sure. Image line energy, like to like just have that different approach to creativity and visualization. I think I completely agree. It's definitely its own thing, and they nail it. Like it feels like these guys are musicians and programmers. Like they get the best of both worlds. And it just looks nice. It feels nice. Sure.
Anyway, yeah. Let me bypass some of these effects so you can hear what this patch actually sounds like. Yeah, so that's a cool sound off the bat. So I'm using a little bit of unison. So as you can hear, this is pretty much just a saw wave mixed with a little bit of square wave. I'm using a resonant low pass that is being modulated by this envelope here. I'm turning up the harmonizer a little bit. Not really doing anything. With the unison, I have it on blurred. Mode, but something cool that I'm doing is I am affecting the harmonic unison pitch, and basically what that's doing is all of these things right here. These are sine wave partials, and if you add all of them up, they will create your complex saw wave or square wave, as you hear. Now, harmonic unison pitch, because I'm using unison, which is detuning these voices, basically I am detuning these higher partials more than the lower partials by creating this curve here. What that's doing is it's dephasing, or it's decorrelating the higher harmonic phases from the lower ones, and that is kind of giving it this like squelchy effect. Like if I increase this more, let's see if I could, yeah, you can hear that it was really crazy. And the less I use, the more it sounds like it's like a harder, stiffer sound. So yeah, so that's kind of the foundation of that. That sounds very kind of liquidy and lasery, but I wanted it to sound like more like beefy and kind of like dirty. And Harmer isn't necessarily the best for making like dirty, gritty sounds. So I just threw some erosion on it. And all of a sudden, it introduces that AM noise that just like really grits it up. And yeah, it sounds cool. And then I have Serum Effects filter, which is really just a band reject filter. I have this macro where I am doing a band reject and band pass filter simultaneously. It's just, I find it really, really useful. And I'm just kind of cutting out some of those lows and then bringing them back in, or those low mids and then bringing them back in. I don't think I had disperser on, did I?
I don't think you did.
I don't know. Yeah, probably not. And then I have a delay, just so there's that little extra slap back mid-range. I'm using a little bit of soothe to cut out the top end. It's very transparent. And I'm using Tone 2 acoustics to I'm using clarity enhance, a little bit of exciter, and then a little bit of laser punch and some just brightening it up really. And then I'm using the resonators with a little bit of automation to kind of introduce this like that tone, that fifth harmonic in there.
Sure.
And then topping it off with a Saturn.
Best.
And this is, oh, why not working?
Uh-oh.
What's going on? Wait. Dude, did I break it? What the hell? What? I don't know what I just did. I'm sorry.
What you could
It
do
was just working.
in theory is unshare and then reshare. So maybe we'll give that an attempt. Your computer just might be like, this is too much dank.
Well, wait, hold on. Can you hear this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
So,
it's just this one track.
The Harmer thing or something?
Maybe it's Harmer. No, audio is passing through all the way to the end. I think I just messed up the routing or something. Dang. Well, I mean, that's pretty much the whole sound. So.
Yeah, you got to the end. That's what matters.
Yeah. So, bam, impact sound. I didn't want the drop to kind of just be a full-on beat just yet. I wanted this to like really build and rise. Oh, I re-enabled my bass group, I think, or re-disabled it.
It looks like something is secretly soloed there.
I think I got it. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I just wanted there to be like a bam, like whoa. What was that sound? Kind of effect, and then have it like do like a little rise again, and then actually kick in on the second bar of the drop. I don't know. It seems to be kind of a more common thing these days, and I really like that vibe.
The AU5 fake out.
Yeah, it's a fake out. So yeah, I'll just like omit the first, or I'll omit the there'll be kick, snare. Yeah.
Those vocals are playing such an integral part in the drop phrasing.
Yeah. So what did I do? I made this vocal chop first, and then I think I actually used this as kind of a guideline for where I should arrange the basses in the next part. Like this vocal chop is, it's really it's all just bits from the original stem. And it's just a painstaking trial and error process.
Yeah, fuck.
I don't really know how to. There's really no shortcut.
It's Yoda.
To it.
It's Yoda. Yoda styles.
Yeah, it's a thing. So yeah, let's see. Let me go over a couple more bases, then we can talk about maybe some of the pads. Cool. So let's see what this is here. So yeah, this is just a serum. non-harmonic combs. This is a wavetable that I made, I think, from either Harmor or Razor. Yeah, you can get some. Come on, trigger. Yeah, it's just something that I imported from a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this thing, which is
Hello.
really fun. So this is, if I bypass everything, sounds like this. Oh. What? Yeah, this is actually a Reese space that I resampled. That sounds like this. Nope. This one. It's actually kind of nasty and messy, but what I'm doing in Serum is I like to use the flanger filters and then use the note modulator on the cutoff. And what that does is it kind of gives it that like tonal delay sound.
Cool.
Something that's kind of noisy and messy and like kind of like clarify the tonality of it by tuning the cutoff of your flanger filter to your note modulator. Yeah, and yeah, that's the sound of it, and it's just these notes with with just some glide. Then I'm using erosion. Make it gritty again. I'm using this sub crossover just to kind of isolate the sub while I do. I'm not even using this filter right here, but
Are we dealing with a separate sub in this track?
no, actually, I am doing all of my sub in each in
Wow.
like yeah. I just do it in Serum or like whatever synth that I do, and usually if I want to do any processing after the patch, what I'll do is I'll use this sub crossover rack. Yeah, let me explain this real quick. So pretty much I'm just using a multiband dynamics because it has built-in, frequency
Splitters,
crossovers.
right?
Yeah. So the lows, I'm really just like isolating the 80 hertz, which is this. You can barely hear it for whatever reason. Yeah, I'm isolating the lows from the highs. That way I can process the highs. There is so much stuff on here, I'm sorry. I can process the highs independently and then preserve, keep the sub intact. So let's see what this thing is. Yeah, so this looks like I'm using on the mid band. I have a 3-band crossover, where I'm just like filtering out the mid band, and I just threw a vocoder on it. It kind of gives it that like glossy, watery effect. But I don't have that on the highs because I like the crispiness that the highs have. And then I'm using, I'm using this another crossover with with this that ultra hyper reshifter rack, basically the stacked Serum hyper dimensions to get this effect. And I'm automating this on only for some parts, like this part right here.
Whoa.
It sounds like that. And how I'm getting it to growl, actually, let me backtrack a little bit. So that's where this EQ came in. I'm using a really resonant high-pass filter to kind of growl it, to make it like talk. And that's why it's important to have this low sub crossover band. So I could have the sub go through even when I'm, doing some crazy high pass filtering.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of think of it as almost like a notch filter that's expanding and, compressing in width.
It's a high-low splitter,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And then I'm using, kilohertz distortion, which is really awesome plugin. Just makes it really chunky. I'm using Ozone Imager. Oh no, that's only for, I don't know. This is kind of a mess. I mean, like if I right click this, like it goes off my screen with how many
Holy
devices are in
shit!
here.
Wow. Wow.
So,
Well done.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if it really makes sense to go through
It doesn't.
all of that.
I don't think, but
You get a sense of just like how much crap goes into each of these sounds, and that's why it's important to render them down into audio.
how long did you work? How long did it take you to make this song from start to finish?
I could actually check. Let's see, current project, date modified. Okay, so I started it
July 26th.
July 26th, and then the last one was
October 1st, roughly.
it was this one. Actually, that was after Enhanced had
August.
me shorten it. So
Hey.
before that, it was August 21st. So almost a whole month. But I did most of it, I would say, I did most of it in like 2 weeks.
How many hours a day are we talking here that you work on music, Austin?
These days it really varies. Man, it's such a hard thing.
Is it every day?
It's not every day. No, it's just because like I have life stuff that I have to do, and then there's like social stuff,
Life,
networking stuff,
quote unquote.
Yeah.
That.
And then I also, in the meantime, I spend a lot of time doing art and animations and stuff. I do all my promo and like promo assets and cover art and animated visualizers and stuff. So that takes a big chunk of time. I'm kind of a control freak, so it's like I have a really hard time having someone else do that for me.
So you do everything.
It's important. Yeah, unless the label is like, "Hey, we already made this thing that we want to use," then I'm just like, "Okay, fine." As long as it's not like hideous. Then sometimes it is, and I'll just like quickly make my own like animation, for instance.
Like weird. I already had this made. I don't know. It was just it just works great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel
It's never been a problem. It's
No,
just
of course
sometimes just extra long nights of just like, why am I doing this?
Right.
Just strive for perfection.
You know why. Let's see. Let's dig a little into questions. I don't want to keep you all night. I mean, as awesome as it.
I think I'm probably good for like, I'd probably be good for like another hour before I start losing steam. I drank a bunch of coffee.
Okay. Well, you heard it here first. Then we can do it for another hour.
If you're down.
I'm down. I would love that. I just didn't want to, hold you against your will. We still got 64
cool.
in here. I think everybody should
great.
take this link and share it with everyone, their mother, and bless everyone you know, and share the link right now and get as many people as we can in here. If we're gonna do another hour, which I think we should, I think maybe we take like a 5-minute bathroom break or something like that.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. I forgot we have bladders.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could totally.
Yeah. How about that? Let's take maybe less than 5, whatever you need, and then we'll be
Okay.
back. How about that? Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it.
All right.
Drink me, drink me.
What's up, chat? How is everybody doing? This is epic. How epic is this? All right, we're back. We're back. Got it done. The whole bladder thing. Got it done. Got it handled. All right, let's get back to it. So,
Yeah.
let's continue with the bass processing stuff.
Cool. All right. Let's see. Man, there's just like so much random stuff pieced here. As you can see, like,
Well, maybe
I
we
use
can
a
talk
lot
for
of-
a second about just the creative approach behind like where and when and why and how the random stuff.
yeah.
Well, a lot of that is what like me and Nick like to say is like kind of Jedi stuff, where it's kind of complicated and it comes from years of experience and music theory and stuff like that. But if there was any sort of approach, I feel like you would be able to explain, you know, like maybe the concept behind just, I guess maybe motifs and drop arrangements.
Yes. Yeah, good point. So, a lot of the times I will, it'll kind of be a combination of things. I will, I like to build songs in the sequence that you hear the song. I don't really like to start off writing a drop because I find it much harder to kind of backtrack. I like to experience, I like the experience of producing a song from the start to the end in that order because it keeps me moving, like it keeps me motivated, it keeps me excited for like what the next thing is going to be. If I start with the climax or the drop, then it kind of feels like a struggle to, it kind of feels like I need to like add filler as like the intro. I set the environment that I know that I want to be in, as you've heard in the intro, and then, you know, from the listener's perspective, you're pretty much hearing my experience of the songwriting process. So it's like, all right, what comes next? I'm feeling that same excitement and that same anticipation of like, what's the next thing that's going to come? And it's interesting because when I'm on like the forefront of creating, a lot of times with that excitement, my brain will start to hear ideas and things that could fill in the blank, like things that I'm anticipating could come next. And a lot of the times it's when it comes to drops, I'll hear there will be a groove that is kind of establishing in my subconscious. And usually it's from whatever kind of instrumentation or rhythm the previous section has. Like, do I want this to be a straight beat, like kick, snare, kind of thing? Or do I want it to be like a broken beat? Or do I want there to be like a call and response in the bass? Like, do I want it to have like do I want it to be like a pad, bass, kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times if there isn't really one specific thing that's calling out on me, I'll just start just loading up patches and just dropping sounds in. This is kind of, for me still, I've been making dubstep for years. It's exciting and kind of scary at the same time. It's scary because I know that the creative flow, being in that flow feels awesome, and you can do so much, you can get so much stuff done. But if you spend too much time on the left brain, or like trying to analyze something, or like spend too much time sculpting a particular sound before you actually have like a fleshed out skeleton of, what is this trying to say, you can just all of a sudden just snap out of that creative flow and feel completely stuck. And then it's like, there was so much potential and I can't find it anymore. It's like, I don't know, I lost the path that I was on. You know what I mean? So
Like,
with
but let me ask you this: when you're like, okay, cool, today I'm going to sit down and write a banger. I'm going to write a dubstep song. When you get to the drop, don't you feel like you're pulling from like a collection of subconscious moments in the past that maybe partially come from listening to music, and that's how you're inspired?
Totally. Yeah, I completely agree. I think, I mean, I like to say everything's a remix.
Sure.
Because
I love that.
It's like we're fed all of this information and these songs that we've heard, and the previous experiences and feelings that we've got associated with them. And I think people's tastes, like as an artist, our tastes in music, or our style or our own voice, really just comes from the most pivotal experiences that were associated with the music that we were listening to, or more so, the best of our sonic repertoire, of all of the things that we've heard.
Best of.
I think that's kind of what I would say what most artists draw from, is like, these are the most powerful kind of sounds or words in our musical vocabulary to use to convey something that means the most to us, because when we experienced those things, they were significant to us. So at least for me, it almost feels like I'm just taking, and my whole motivation for making music in the first place is really just to like take all of the best things that I like about music, and all of the gems, and then just combine them into just this one big song composed of just the gems, to me, to my perception. And that's the beautiful thing, is like everyone is going to have a different take on what those gems are. It's such a subjective thing. And so yeah, like you were saying, we're drawing from what we've already previously heard, and that's what I'm doing. It's cool because we don't necessarily need to remember what exactly those moments were. They're just part of our subconscious. It's almost like these memories are encoded in our emotions and in our bodies, in a sense. And it's like, if we hear something, it can just, we can hear one thing and it can trigger this stream of emotions. And yeah, I enjoy writing songs because, like, I can just take one of those things and then, tweak it a little bit, and then the next thing I know, if I'm feeling it, my brain will be like, oh, here's another one that matches really well with this, something that's totally different, and then those two things combined become its own thing, and then I can duplicate that out, and then expound on that, and then duplicate that out, and then vary that a little bit, and then before I know it, I have this arrangement that's there.
Mm.
There's repetition. I think a good arrangement, like a drop arrangement, for instance, is a good balance between repetition and novelty, like what you expect and what you don't expect. I think there needs to be repetition for there to actually be something to like sink our teeth into, so we could feel like we know where we are, instead of just like being bombarded by just randomness. Sometimes that's cool, but oftentimes it's like exhausting and more of like a heady, cerebral stimulus. I want to,
Sure.
you know, to really get in the groove of something. I mean, a groove kind of implies repetition, and then varying that at the kind of the tail ends um, keeps
I'm
the
with
magic.
you on that. People will ask me all the time about developing a sound and signature sound, and I say, at least for me specifically, a lot of my quote unquote signature sound came from reusing my own sounds and repetition and using the same stupid saw silence preset that I found in 2008, and like
Hmm.
and people, I think people are afraid of repetition because they feel like in this oversaturated situation that everything has to be so fucking original, and
Yeah,
and they're afraid of the concept of doing something that someone has done before. And I think that the reality is that everything has been done before
yeah,
in some way, shape, or form, and you shouldn't be afraid of that on your own quest for originality.
I agree. And I think even if you do try to recreate something, or even if you do recreate something that already existed, it's going to be inherently different in some way. It's like you can't make something verbatim unless you are, you know, following step by step, typing in the exact same values of the parameters and stuff. But it's like, yeah, I mean, I've for so many years just uh, I'll save a patch that I made, and then I mean, that's what a lot of these are actually. It's like I will save, I'll load up a patch that I previously made, and then I'll just start tweaking it until it's something new, and then I'll save that again, and then load that up later, and then tweak that again, and it'll evolve into something completely different. However many iterations down the road, and that's I think that isn't something to like be looked down upon. I think ultimately, whatever helps you get the song done is the best course of action, because the last thing that you want to do is have a song that seemed so promising and you just hit a wall, and you can't, and you've listened to it too much and you're just stuck and you're like overthinking everything. I mean, for me, when I sit down and have a very strong intention to make a specific kind of song for a specific kind of purpose, I struggle. It is there's a lot of resistance because I'm just thinking about it too much. When I have, when I sit down and just start messing around, start like throwing stuff in, making something stupid and simple, that's when that's when I'll get into the flow. That's when inspiration will hit. I find that it's a lot easier to make something simple more complex than it is to turn something that's complex into something that works and is
Sure.
accessible and intuitive. Um, so I think that a really good approach is, I mean, I find that my best songs, the or the writing part of the song, is usually completely done within 3 days, and then the rest is just like a lot of tweaks and then technical stuff. But as far as like the theme of the song, I would say try to finish that within like 8 hours. If you're, yeah, I think longer than 8 hours it will start to progressively become harder and harder to make something that sounds cohesive, compositionally speaking. I hope that makes sense.
It does make sense. I think that only applies to someone who is technically sound with Ableton, because I think a lot of people get caught up in like workflow barriers because they just are unaware of certain things.
Right.
But like that's why I say that it's very important to focus on just becoming an Ableton wizard first, because once you have the workflow, you'll be able to, your brain will feel less stressed about hotkeys and where to click and samples and stuff like that. Another question I was actually going to ask you is, do you have days where it's just a sound design day, or this is just a writing day? Do you think that's important to separate those two, or is it just I'm going to sit at the computer? Or do you have an agenda to some degree?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the separation between the two things, because in the beginning, like several years ago, I didn't really think much of that. I was like I said, well, I guess I was kind of doing it. I was saving patches, loading up patches to then use when I was, in the songwriting process. I do think having separate sessions for sound design, like dedicated sound design and dedicated songwriting, is important, because, for instance, if you're writing a song and you want to make some crazy sounds in the song, you're going to have to set aside a lot of time and energy to sculpt these sounds that you're hearing. And that takes away from the flow of the songwriting. That is going to make it a lot harder to get back into that flow of songwriting. And
yeah, I just canceled out the share quick so we can have just a chat here.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, because we're not really doing anything at all. Yeah, I think it's important to separate the two processes, because when you're doing a sound design session, just not focused on trying to make a song, but just explore sound design, you can explore so much deeper without having this feeling of like, I need to finish this song that I'm making this sound for. No, you can just hit record and just go crazy on synths and go as deep as you want. Everything is being recorded, and then save patches along the way, and then when you're done recording out your jam, just saving that whole thing. And then when it is time to write a song, you already know that you have some really cool sounds that you discovered, and you don't have to fumble around trying to make something that you're hearing in your head. You can just take that already dope sound that you you recorded, find some find the nuggets in that jam, and then it saves so much time, and I think it's a much more optimized way to produce.
And I think that also applies the other way around, how you said that, okay, I don't need to force this like song to finish this song. I think it applies to the sound too. Like, I don't have to stop doing sound design because I want to use this like for a drop. Like, okay, cool, I'm making a drop, let's make a sound. Okay, this is good enough, let's just put it in there and let's move on from the sound. I find that sometimes I do that because I spend a lot of time just like, crazy how much you change the way your flow is when you're, obviously, but when you have to explain to someone how you make music. I'm like, okay, cool, this is how I make drops. And then I've along the way, at some point, I've just created this method where I'm like, pull in 3 serums, have a downbeat, have a response, have a turnaround. And then it's like, it's weirdly effective, but like when you don't separate them, I agree. It's like, and I think it's also good for your brain to be like, okay, cool, I'm not going to stress about writing melodies or whatever it is that you stress about it. Whether it could be anything, but to just have an agenda going in. I don't know why the word agenda has such a negative connotation when I say it. It just sounds like a presidential evil or something like that. But to have like a plan, a schedule, like, all right, cool. Also, the last Producer's Corner we were talking was Quanto. I guess it was 2 ago. and he was talking about sound design warm-ups, when he opens the DAW, he makes a sound before he touches anything. And I thought that was a really cool technique that since then I've been doing. Like in the morning, I spend whatever 6 hours a day on my computer on Ableton. First thing I do when I turn my computer on is I go in and I whatever operator or Serum or whatever it is, I'll just dabble for 15 minutes and try something new, and I think it just gets the ball rolling. And I think that's kind of a hybrid of the two. I think it's pretty cool.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I do find that a lot of times when I am doing sound design, I'm like, ooh, I can already start hearing some songs that could, the juices are already flowing. Sometimes it turns into that. Sometimes, yeah, okay, I made a dope sound. Like for instance, I have a song, glitch hop song called Inflex, and I took, I was on a plane. I was gonna play a show in San Francisco. I was on a plane, and I was just like, okay, I'm limited. And also there's another thing, like limiting yourself to just like one synth, or like in my case, I only had Serum and just Ableton stock plugins. Cool. So that's all I had to use. So I was like, okay, how can I make a really dope sounding respace without a ton of third-party plugins, just Serum and Ableton stock effects? And I created this. I think this limitation kind of forced me down a specific path, not to get too distracted with other things. And I made this really dope sound, this with Serum. And then I got to the hotel.
Can we pull it up real quick?
Oh yeah, sure.
Wait, what was it called again?
Inflex. It's spelled how it's You
probably won't be able to hear it. You can turn on the stream or something. Oh, is this a drop sound or?
Yeah, it's the main sound in the first drop.
Check it out. I hate to skim through. We got time. Let's listen to it real quick.
Okay.
The volume up. Excellent. We gotta bring. Sick.
Yeah.
Very tight.
Yeah, so that sound, that song actually just came about just from that main sound. I was like, okay, that's a cool sound. And
so that song was born from that patch.
Yep, just that
Cool.
That one sound. Before there was even a drum beat. The next thing I did, I got to I made a simple drum beat. Then I got to the hotel, and then kind of just took that beat and bass, duplicated it out, did some variation, consolidated that, duplicated that out, did some more variation.
Do we have this session available, or is this an old one?
Oh yeah, I can look this up.
Real Sketchy Pete wants to know if he can see it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally down to.
All right.
To deviate. Let's see.
Yeah, feel free to share again when you're ready.
Oh yeah, I called this. What was it originally called? Reese Slasher Project.
Sounds about right.
Because that's what it was. It was just like the slashy. Yeah. All right. This should load. Let's see.
can't believe you got the 96 rammers, man. I'm pretty sweet. I mean, it makes sense now. That I didn't realize that you were so deep into the visual game.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's.
How long have you been doing that? Forever?
I've been dabbling since 2013 with like
Wow.
3D, with 3D stuff. Before then, I was, I've been screwing around with Photoshop. I think probably since I was like 8 or 9, because my parents are graphic designers and illustrators, so they. Darn.
Crash?
You see this?
No, I'm not shared. I can't see.
Oh yeah,
You have death?
it did crash.
I have death.
Oh, here, you know what? I should probably open up. It might take a minute. Sorry about that.
Oh, good. In the meantime, could we pull up some of your 3D render stuff? Is any of this available to be?
Yeah.
What should I search?
Oh, dang. Well, I mean, Inflex has a music video. If you want to see that, they're all custom renders and
You've done.
animations.
This is you.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Okay, let's check it out. Let's watch a bit of it. We'll full screen this shit. Come on. Oh shit. Sick. That's so wild, dude. I feel like a lot of people don't know that you made that. That's that, and how not easy that is to do. That is awesome.
Yeah. So basically how I made that was over the past. Those are animations that I made, like VJ loops that I made over the past 2 or 3 years. So yeah, I use Cinema 4D for like 3D stuff, After Effects for like more 2D and like crazy post processing, and then I use Resolume MIDI linked with Ableton to essentially like arrange the VJ clips as like to the song, so everything is in sync and then follows the beat and stuff.
So cool.
Yeah. It was a lot of work.
Oh my
It's a lot of
gosh.
freaking work.
That's so fucking dope.
But it's really fun. I mean, I'd say it's just as fun as producing. I don't think I'm as experienced with doing that stuff as I am with producing, but that's also what makes it. That can make it funner too, because like, I don't have these set. I don't necessarily have all of these like ingrained methods of doing things. Like it's a much more of an explorative.
That's all I am composed of. The collections of ingrained ways of doing things in Ableton. I feel like that's my molecular makeup.
Yeah, me
that
too.
sounds really fun.
Yeah,
I had downloaded Blender recently and opened it up, and I was like, oh, what? And what's happening? I was like, what am I learning right now?
dude.
This is too
Yeah,
much.
3D like Cinema 4D and Blender like 3D software especially is it takes like at least a month to like start to know where things are. It's
Right. And I know that
it's
Blender is
not an
like
easy feat.
the casual version. That's why I had gotten it. I was like, all right, cool. I'm gonna get the garage band of C4D and use loops, you know. And I like watched it. Like I'm sure everyone's done this tutorial. It's like a tutorial on how to make a like cupcake or something like on YouTube. And by the time I got about halfway through it, and I was like, I need to make music. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I was like, I'm so uncomfortable.
It's quite the feat.
Yeah. I mean that is so awesome. Uber Kid wants to know if you made the shaders.
The shaders?
Did you make the shaders too?
I'm assuming he's referring to the like the materials on the 3D stuff. If that's what he's wondering, then yeah. I make all of them. There is one scene that I did steal from a Beeple project that I modified. I'm going to be transparent about that.
Wow,
But it was just one of those scenes. The rest is just all from scratch.
I respect your translucence. People's the best.
People's best.
Yeah, that's what he was asking about, was for the 3D models. Squab wants to know, he said you said earlier that you feel like a control freak. How do you reduce the control freakness when you collaborate with other people?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, collaborating with other people, I think this also might be a personality thing for me. It's like I'm a control freak, and I think one of the reasons I am a control freak is because it's like when other people have to be involved, I want it to be fair. I feel weird about things like I want to meet halfway with someone. When I'm collaborating, I don't want to be that guy who just like erases, like paves over their vision with mine. I want to what I try to do going into it is like extrapolate what I value the most from what they've presented and try to honor that as best as possible. Complement that, not just like, pave over it. And there's really no like specific techniques for doing that I'm aware of. But that's just kind of my approach to it. It's like, I trust that even if there is not necessarily, even if choices that this other person makes is not necessarily things that I would do, I try to let myself find value and see it from their perspective as much as possible. If it needs improvement upon, ideally that's going to be more of like a technical, objective correction than it will be like a creative redirection, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I want to honor, because I mean, if I were in their position, I wouldn't want someone to just like be like, oh, cool, let me just take this one little thing and rewrite an entirely new song over it, kind of thing.
Okay, let's get to another question. So let's get back to some music production stuff. How about that?
Yeah. I got the Inflex project
open.
open.
Let's see it for sure. Start there. And maybe you can answer some of these questions with the Inflex project open. One question I have is, do you have a specific theory or method for placing sounds in the stereo field, creating such a large space with lots of clarity?
Does this person? Okay, wait.
This is CT Boz. This is in the Discord.
Oh, it's in the Discord. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I'll drop this question in the chat just so you can get. I know that was kind of weirded that weird.
So this seems more okay. Initially, I was thinking this was like an arrangement thing. Like, how do I
think it's a stereo field thing.
Yeah, how do I juxtapose mono sounds with stereo sounds? But it seems to be more like, how do I make sounds stereo with clarity? Man,
it does seem like that.
It really depends on the sound. There are different techniques that suit stereo expansion better for other sounds. And I think there will be quite a bit in here that I can demonstrate. So here, let me throw listen to on the master so we can hear this.
Will it be the same link or should I pull up a different one?
Let's see. If I hit, okay, let's see if this works.
Yeah.
Same link. Cool. All right. So regarding basses, because I mean I think that's the hardest thing to get right as far as stereo imaging goes. Let's see, where is the drop? Drop A. Oh, that something didn't sound right. Oh no. I think something is initialized.
Initialize. It sounded like a cool in it.
It's Harmer that's initialized. I don't know what's going on with this. Yeah, Harmer got initialized for some reason. I think I was resampling something.
Okay.
All right, I gotta bypass that because that sounds ridiculous. We got this sound though. So this is the sound that I started off with, and this is what it sounds like with no effects on it. So this is just straight out of Serum.
Still dope.
Let me bypass the sidechain. So is that clipping? I know it's.
I mean, in listen to.
Yeah.
Run it one more time. Yeah.
Okay.
Clipping. I've got it at half volume, so in theory, it's better. But I know it's without.
There we go. Cool. All right. So yeah, this is actually made with no
4088, which like the 4088 is like what you normally accidentally hit when you hit right. No, damn it.
That may have been why it's there.
I feel like that's why it shows up.
I was like, okay, let's just make it work.
Yeah.
So yeah, so this is the sound that I started out with. So let's see what's going on here. I have pretty much all of the effects going on at once. Yeah, it sounds super lame. As you can tell, yeah, so this LFO is modulating 17 different parameters, as you can see, all of those things. So that's what it sounds like normally. Then I'll add this, add a little bit of, so this was crucial. Adding the white noise, but also modulating the level of the white noise.
Mm-hmm.
So it's articulate. And that then when I add an EQ for a little bit of stuff, for a little bit more movement. So, okay. Here is when I introduce stereo spreading. So I'm using the dimension expander, but how I'm using this is I am using the LFO, the same LFO that is modulating everything else, to modulate the mix. Now what that's doing, that's when the filter is open, when it's like whipping open, when this LFO is at the top, it's getting really wide. And then when the LFO is down, or when the filter closes, then it's mono. So this is a technique where it is not. I'm introducing width, but it's not like a static width.
Could we increase the serum size a little bit?
Oh yeah, it's probably real small.
Yeah, there we go.
Give it a second.
Wait.
Yeah, I don't know why this takes so long. There we go. Okay. So yeah, as you can see in here, it's introducing width, versus if it was bypassed, it just kind of sounds like smeary and messy. But yeah, when you do stereo width automation or modulation, if it's synced with everything else, then you can introduce this width dynamically with clarity and preserve that preserve that the clarity essentially. Then I'm using a band reject filter, kind of giving it more of like a yug. And then distortion, this is where everything starts to come together, because I am distorting this, all of that filtering and then the noise, the white noise, together. And that's when the width really starts to become apparent, because I'm distorting it after I'm doing the width. So if I put the dimension after the distortion, it's not going to sound as wide. For some reason, it just sounds way wider when it's when the distortion is after it. Then I'm adding a little bit of phaser, for a little bit more filter movement. Of course, don't really see me doing anything. And then multiband compressor, of course, brings everything all out. And then this rack here, yes. What's going on here?
EQ3s, huh?
So I got a bunch of EQ3s. Yeah, so this is a cool little trick that I learned from Pixel Terror. They use this technique. They just stack a bunch of EQ3s together, and it creates this really thick dispersion effect. And the reason why that happens is because EQ3s, they have filter crossovers in them. They actually have 48 decibel per octave filters, which are very steep filters, and that introduces a lot of phase rotation or all pass filtering. And when you stack them together, you can probably be able to hear that. The difference, basically, the lower frequencies are delayed from the higher frequencies, and you get like this sweepy kind of chirpy effect. And I thought that sounded pretty cool. The cool thing about dispersion or all pass filtering, with whether you're using disperser or EQ3s or just all pass filters, what it does is it reduces your peak amplitude, but it reduces your peak amplitude, but preserves your RMS amplitude or RMS loudness. And what that allows you to do is it actually gives you more headroom, so you can make things sound louder when you disperse them and then maximize them versus maximize them without any dispersion. So I just thought that was a cool little tidbit. And then I have this other thing right here, which is a band crossover, which nothing's really happening yet. In the second drop, I introduce a grain delay, which is transposing everything, which is transposing this mid-band up an octave. And that's how I get these crazy effects in this drop.
Let's hear it.
Oh, one sec. Where did it go? I have to unbypass this. Okay. Nope. Yeah, so this sound right, where is it? This is not an organized project. Whoops. Where is it? Oh, I resampled it to audio. But it's really from this. Nope, not that. It's really from this. Without this grain delay. So you kind of get like this. It sounds like a rubber band to me. Yeah. And then OTT corpus. Yeah. I don't know. But so yeah, that's how I did that. Let me find some other basses. I really wish that Harmer bass worked. Sounds ridiculous.
Damn you.
This Harmer works. These are basically the same chords that I showed how to with the vocal morph. There's this sound, which is just an operator, and then a little bit of reverb. And this sound really just comes from a square wave being FM'd by a sine wave, and then FM'd by another square wave. And it's just
Effective.
yeah. Yeah, I think this serum bass is really like the main bass. A lot of these sounds are just from resampling that bass and then adding like erosion and then reversing them, adding some delays, like that stuff. This is just that same sound but put into a sampler. Also, using a sampler, if you have like some cool bass stuff, if you throw it into a sampler, you can do some crazy stuff, like almost granular stuff. Using the loop, the loop markers.
Right. With crossfade.
It's pretty crazy, yeah. Yeah, this song isn't really that complicated as far as the how many different patches that I use. And I think this is why this song works really well, because it's just one really dope sound that I'm kind of just milking and then using variations of. I'm not using like a whole bunch of different types of main basses. It's really just one texture, and it creates this cohesion throughout the song because almost all the basses are just from that one sound. And that again goes to what we were talking about before, where it's like, if you save a patch and then load up that patch into another song, modify it a bit, and then just keep doing that, you have this consistency throughout your sound as as a brand.
Right. DT wants to know what do you do to have your super saws wide but still good in mono?
I mean, I don't really like these super saws, for instance. What are they? These Harmer saws. Really, just don't overthink it. If you just set your pan, or set your unison pan just as wide as possible, it's usually just gonna work. I mean, there's literally like nothing else on this. From usually my super saws, I don't really do anything to them. I just do some EQ and some compression, and that's it. The way they are, like, they should be, what's it called? If you open up like a correlation meter, like not signalizer. Sonoformer has one. So Sonoformer has this thing called side channel mix, and it's basically a correlation meter across your spectrum. So if you're not familiar with the correlation meter, it basically shows you the relationship between your how much mono signal there is versus how much antiphase or sides signal there is. You don't want to have something too wide or too antiphase, because when it's summed to mono, then it's going to sound quieter. To have something perfectly wide as it is mono, you want to aim for a correlation of 0. So for these pads, for instance, if I play these pads through the Sonoformer, you can see, I mean, these lows are kind of going into the negative correlation. But basically, all of these frequencies up here are kind of just riding around the halfway point, which is a correlation of 0. That means that when it's summed to mono, they're going to sound just as loud as they sound when they're played in stereo. So I would suggest, using something like Ozone's Imager, or Sonoformer. I can't really think of other ones.
Span has correlation meter. That's what I would.
Span does have a correlation meter. Yeah. Yes. Although it doesn't. It's not. It's not multi-band, or it's not.
It's not like that. It's just spectral. -1 to 1. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that is still super useful.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, so what you were saying is so you were saying the closer to 0 without being in the negative,
yeah,
better it sounds in mono. But
Yeah.
isn't one mono?
So 1 is mono, yeah.
Right, yeah.
But it's not. It's mono, but not stereo.
Right. Right.
So if you're at 0, then it's going to be equally as stereo as it is mono. So
Okay.
that's what I shoot for. Also, sometimes you don't want everything to be stereo, otherwise things are not going to sound like. Sometimes things sound wider because of contrast. When you have sounds that are mono and then you introduce a sound that is stereo, it sounds way more stereo, even though it may not be antiphase or a negative correlation. So that's something to keep in mind. A lot of it is just is relative. How wide something sounds is relative to how mono other things sound.
That's a good point. I mean, like, so if you put span or this correlation meter, whatever, on your master,
Mm-hmm.
what are you ideally looking to see? You're looking to see something that is in between 0 and 1, or are you looking at something that's teetering in between 0 and negative 0.3 and 0.3?
So, well, it's almost impossible to get everything exactly at 0 at all times.
Sure.
That's not necessarily the goal either. For a master, for like your master track, what I shoot for is pretty much everything gradually rolling off lower than 120 hertz will become more and more mono.
Mm-hmm.
So basically something that looks like this would be ideal.
Mm-hmm.
So everything in this range is going to be mono, and then everything above is going to be stereo. And sometimes I like to make the top end, like the very high top end, a little bit wider, just because, I don't know.
So by putting a mid-side EQ on your master and cutting out below 200 or 250 on the sides would help that situation.
Definitely. And if you're doing that, make sure you do that before any compression or
that should be
saturation
first,
or stuff
right?
like that. Yeah, that should be first.
Yeah,
because then you can maximize your headroom.
Mm-hmm.
You can just max that out. So like if I reset this and like play a part of the drop. God, it sounds terrible without sidechain. But as you can see, but down here is pretty much very mono, and then up here is more stereo. I could probably boost this, but that could be, it would be best to do mid-side EQing on individual tracks or individual groups versus just like the entire master, because some sounds could be, some sounds are going to be more mono than others. And if you're boosting the sides of your master, those sounds that are already really wide may be too wide and could be drowned out. So the best thing to really do, honestly, is to put a utility on your master and just set it to mono, and then just A/B that from time to time. Set a hotkey to your utility, like the tilde, or like one of your numbers on your number pad. Key map that to your utility, so you can just A/B mono, and so you can hear when you're mixing something how much or how little it should be. You should add stereo expansion to it, so you're not like losing anything when it's collapsed to mono.
Right.
It's a lot easier than going back into your master track and then clicking on it and then going back to your original track and tweaking it. And it's much easier with hotkeys. And how to map hotkeys, if anyone's curious. This button up here where it says key right next to your keyboard, if you hit that, all of your parameters that you can key map will glow yellow or orange, and then you click whatever one you want, type whatever letter you want on your keyboard, and then it'll be key mapped. So, and then just click off.
Do it. Okay.
Yeah, Control K. Yep.
Or Command K if you are.
Oh.
Of the Mac people. Cool. Let's answer a few more questions and let's wrap it up. I mean, we're rapidly approaching 3 hours, which is an iconic amount of time, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, totally, man.
This has been so awesome. Just so great. let's answer some of these questions. And some of these are broad questions, so maybe we answer to some degree. But where do you get your inspirations for creating your sound? Broad question.
Oh, okay. Inspiration for creating my sounds. So, personally, sound is very visual to me. You may be familiar with synesthesia, which is kind of like the crossover of senses. Sound is very visual to me in the sense that, like, I find that if I hear a sound, I will get a sense of its color, its shape, and its texture. I think every sound kind of has like a color, a shape, and a texture. And if the sound is moving or morphing, any one of those parameters, including its, where it is in my mental space, will be moving around. And the way, it's a very abstract way to explain this, but it's the best way that I can really explain it is like the way that I get inspiration for different types of sounds and how to arrange sounds would be equivalent to how a visual artist or like a painter, for instance, would arrange color and texture on a canvas, if that makes sense. Like, there needs to be a balance of contrast. There needs to be a balance of contrasting sound, contrasting timbres and textures, for me to find it as pleasing as possible, or as interesting and vibrant as possible. I personally take a little bit less of an abstract perspective. Is I really like the combination, or the idea, the concept of stuff that sounds futuristic and organic at the same time. I mean, a lot of it really just comes down to, like we were talking about before, sounds that I've heard before in other music. They're just sounds that give me a specific visceral response that I really like, and that sounds unique. So I like sounds that are like dry and thick and crunchy. I like sounds that are like glossy and like wet and organic. I like sounds that sound dissonant and metallic, or like electric. And I think finding a balance of all of those in a single song makes for a really interesting, for me, synesthetic experience. I hope that answers the question.
I think it does. I think the first step before that, I think if you're like getting started, is to figure out what you like and try and put a label, whether it be a color. Like for me, when I make music, I'm very like, this track that I'm making is either like light blue and purple, or it's like red. And like for me, I don't have synesthesia, but I do like to correlate colors with sounds.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm like,
yeah,
man,
there's some things that just
really
make sense.
go for this color, and I think that actually helps. So listening to other people's music and being like, oh man, this makes this track is this color, or these sounds are this color, and that's why I like them. It's like how you can learn synthesis through deductive reasoning by turning things off and being like, this is why the reason I like this sound is because this thing is doing this thing. And I think that's a great way to start.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's a much more real world perspective.
No, you're right though. But the wet and organic, those are all just more advanced versions. But totally.
Yeah, I think even doing something, I want to add to that a little bit. Like, if you are a visual person, I think doing something even like using Pinterest, for instance, like making a Pinterest board of like things that are cool and are inspiring to you, or like fit your vibe. Using an image board to kind of get sonic inspiration from, if that makes sense. It's like, does this sound, or does this song that I want to, is this song that I'm making work within this environment that that these pictures tell a story of, or that these pictures portray. You know.
Totally. I think some people make the accidental mistake of assuming that since they're focusing on this one form of art, which is music production and creating music, that they somehow end up neglecting the connection to so many other types of art and how they're so connected.
Yeah.
And maybe that link for understanding that next step in music production is correlated to some other type of art. I don't know. It might be ridiculous, but I feel like for me, I love all types of art, and for me, it's all the same thing. Like when I watch movies, I think about music. When I'm in Target looking for clothes, I listen to the music, and if I'm in an art gallery, I'm still listening to the music. And there's music that lives in all types of art. I think it's just finding the link.
Yeah.
Lock them together, and it ends up unlocking a whole other just world, basically, which is the best thing about art.
I totally agree, man. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I do visual art as well. It's because I think there's a synergistic effect when you have visual art that pairs perfectly with sonic art or music, because when they're on point, it creates it almost creates like a new experience. It creates a unified experience that is more powerful than its parts. I'm really particular about I'm super particular about people VJing for my live performances, because sometimes so many times I'll go to shows and the VJ will just have some random thing that doesn't match the song at all, and it's not in beat, and it kind of like distracts me from the whole experience.
You're like
it's
DJing,
harder
like,
for me to,
nope, fuck that one up,
dude. That's happened a lot, and it just makes me angry. But like, even if I'm watching an artist perform, and a lot of times I have to close my eyes because it doesn't match up. I think some artists really nail it, like Cohen Sound, for instance. Like they're very conscientious of their visual, the visual pairing.
Yeah.
For the live performances, and I think they pair pretty well. Like there's a lot of synesthetic correlation, and it just helps me really just get into that space, that sonic and visual space. It just makes it that much better. So I totally agree with you, man. It's like it is kind of one thing.
It is one thing, and I think you're missing out on accident a lot of times by denying, the inspiration. I feel like inspiration is a learnable technique. You can learn to find inspiration.
Yeah.
Just like raising awareness in yourself. But I think the first step is trying to figure out what you like. Like, what do I like? How could you know what you like unless you take a second and you're like, oh, these type of things. These are what makes me go, let's go. Like, this is awesome. These are the things I don't like, or and why. That's all so specific to each person. I think that's so important in the creative journey, to figure that out as soon as you can, and let it develop, because until you figure it out, it's not going to develop.
Yeah, and something that I kind of find it a shame how I think there are a lot of people that tend to look outwardly towards others to see what other people like, to determine what they think they like. When I think you're right. Yeah, in reality, everyone has their own unique tastes in things. There are things that, we're all different people. We're all unique people. We have a unique set of things that we resonate with. And I think if you can find that, look inward and find what really resonates with you, you're going to, and if you're an artist, you're going to create more harmonious art. And just as a person, you're just going to live a more harmonious life. Surrounding yourself with the things that truly resonate with you, I think is very important and healthy.
I agree. All right. I think that's a great place to wrap it up.
I think so.
That's fucking awesome. What an iconic moment. Don't forget that you can support AU5. There's the link right there. That was so great, Austin. That was amazing. I think that was one of the best conversations I've ever had in my career. That was amazing.
That's awesome, man.
We're gonna process the video. If you want to watch the video immediately, just like subscribe to the Twitch channel and you can watch it. Otherwise, and it'll be up on YouTube in a few days. We are going to. That was awesome. I'm gonna listen to that "Breathe in the Moment" track right now and check it out. That was great, man.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank
so
you so
much,
much,
dude.
Max, for having me on here.
Yeah,
This has been a blast.
You're the best, man. I hope that I can see you soon, dude.
Yeah, same.
We'll see.
This is over soon.
I know. I think it will be. But we'll see. Everybody stay safe. Shout out to Austin one more time, and I will see you guys soon. Appreciate all y'all. Later.
Standing at the edge of paradise, watching moments of my life flash in my mind. It took a million miles to finally get to you. If you only knew, and I could show you everything's gone, but none of it would matter in your arms. I just wanna crash into you and breathe in the moment. Time barely moves, and we don't even notice. My heart's breaking open. So breathe in the pieces of my soul got ripped away, but in the light of you they somehow get replaced. I used to hold on to the pain like a photograph. It was all I had, and I could show you everything's gone, but none of it would matter in your arms. I just wanna crash into you and breathe in the moment. Time barely moves, and we don't even notice. My heart's breaking open. So breathe in the moment.
Just watch some or whatever. Finish it. Kill it.